Imagine a place where the past and future collide in a dance of horsepower and heritage. A place where legends are forged and the spirit of competition breathes through the trees. It's a kingdom of velocity and passion, and beneath it all lies the beating heart of motorsport racing history. This celebration of innovation is a testament to human ambition and a reminder of what we came from. Today, we will look through this estate which is fueled by the undying spirit of competition. This is the Goodwood Festival of Speed.
There's nothing wrong with your video device. Do not attempt to adjust the picture.
60s formula cars, modern hypercars, rally legends, and more than 100,000 petrol heads. All in one place, all there for one single purpose: to celebrate the human desire to go fast. And it's a wild, gas-powered carnival of roaring engines and tire smoke. And it takes place once a year in God's own England, created by the descendant of a motorsports legacy who wanted people to remember racing history and welcome new fans into car culture, all in a bid to keep tradition alive. In 1993, it's June 20th. We're in France, where Jeff Brabham is setting the pace at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in the legendary Peugeot Talbot Sport. Across the channel, among the rolling green hills of West Sussex in southern England, a different group of race cars were in the pits, waiting to unleash hell. Now, the cars that had spent the night in the grueling 24-hour race were cutting edge. But these cars here on this British lawn were antiques, pieces of history that had been freed from museums and collections in order to do what they were made to do: race. This was the first Goodwood Festival of Speed, held at the Goodwood House, a sprawling mansion headed by a man named Lord March. The inaugural event still runs to this day. A no-limits hill climb that was about to be won by a 1978 Grand Prix car that up until now was largely unsuccessful. The Surtees TS20 Formula One car, powered by a Ford Cosworth V8, never sat on the podium in its heyday, but it would win the Goodwood hill climb 15 years later. And despite the victory being heavily overshadowed by Le Mans, 25,000 people had gathered to witness the event. And as it turns out, March was right. People did still care about the days of old, when racing was untamed and extra dangerous. He probably got the idea from his ancestors, who were instrumental in bringing motorsports to the limelight. It started back in the 1800s, and the descendant of the first Duke of Richmond, the third Duke of Richmond, Charles Lennox, decided to build a racetrack around his giant castle. Since it was at the Goodwood House, which is a serious misnomer because this thing is a 12,000-acre property with a friggin' hotel, but they did name the racetrack the Goodwood Racecourse. At the time, it was just horses, but eventually it would be retrofit for auto racing. Since the new helm of the manor, the 9th Duke of Richmond, Frederick Gordon Lennox, was super into adrenaline. See, after World War I, a lot of people wanted to go racing, but there wasn't really a place to do it. Goodwood was a prime spot for the new sport, right up until World War II. Yep, again, those pesky wars getting in the way of our great sport again. Now, young Frederick, going by the name of Freddie March, had been racing midgets and other cars around his manor for years, before becoming a pilot in the war. Afterwards, as happens in war, the racetrack was in ruins, and that pissed Freddie off.
Ooh, I gotta go.
So he rebuilt it and set off to make motorsports popular. In 1948, the Goodwood circuit was officially open, and it would become a premier racetrack seemingly overnight. Some of history's greatest drivers cut their teeth on the Goodwood tarmac, including none other than Sterling Moss, who unfortunately also ushered in the end of Goodwood's first chapter in motorsports, because it was in 1962 that Moss, participating in the Glover Trophy, slid his Lotus 19 off the side of the Goodwood circuit, putting him in a coma and ending his racing career. He fortunately survived, but the writing was on the wall, and by the 60s, cars had gotten so fast that the age of the track was becoming an issue. Without modern safety features and unwillingness from the Goodwood Foundation to implement new standards, the track was forced to close in 1966. And there it sat, waiting until the grandson, Charles Henry Gordon Lennox, the 11th Duke of Richmond, and I promise, this is the last time I'll be so formal, aka Charles March. He decided to bring speed back to Goodwood. And that's when he started with that hill climb in 1993. But the event has become so much more. By 1994, the one-day event had been expanded to 2 days. In 1996, Friday was on the menu, and now it's nearly a month-long festival. There's just so much going on at any given time, and not just the old cars, although those do get a lot of the attention. Many manufacturers bring their latest and greatest concepts, just to get people amped. Supercar owners can have their cars judged at the paddock, or at the even more exclusive Cartier steel it looks. Between the newest McLaren and a perfectly preserved Porsche 959, you might find a real Group B car just hanging out, waiting for its chance to race a modern Ford Focus rally car on the Forest Rally stage. Manufacturers aren't only competing in static displays though. Another Goodwood favorite, the Soapbox Derby, saw the likes of Bentley and McLaren building pedal-powered cars to duke it out. One of the more recent attractions is the arena, a place for drifting, stunts, and general hooning. There's nothing more satisfying than watching a car burn rubber till it explodes with the backdrop of some stuffy English mansion. And then if you look up, you can catch part of the air show that happens. Or you might turn and find yourself looking at an electric concept poised to outrun Rimac. As the two newest events, the Electric Avenue and the Future Lab, both strive to bring next year's motorsports into present day, including the incredible McMurtry Spearling, which won the hill climb in 2022. It's an electrical single-seat car, though it seems generous to call it a car, and it's piloted by Max Chilton. Later that year, the single-seat electric Rocket would set the world record for the fastest accelerating road car, and it would run a quarter mile in less than 8 seconds.
7.97! Fan off! Remember to put the fan off!
Years before, the Volkswagen IDR also set records at the hill climb. Yet the climb is nothing if not a great equalizer. A Nissan 350Z, Ford Cosworth 88, and a McLaren 720S are previous winners of the climb. Goodwood is nothing if not eclectic. It feels surreal to see a Peugeot 208 Pikes Peak rally car line up behind a 1974 Ferrari Can-Am car. Yet, that happened. But in my mind, there's one major event that deserves its own segment. It happened in 1998, 5 years after the first hill climb, because while hill climbing was a part of the original motorsports tradition, even starting way back when cars had wooden wheels, it's not what people knew Goodwood for. That's not where Sterling Moss became known as Mr. Goodwood. And it's not the event race junkie pilot Grandpa March fought so hard for. It was the circuit, the one that closed because it was just too unsafe and no one would ever want to race on it. Well, turns out that wasn't true. And some people like old cars and want to watch them race. People like Charles March, who, after seeing the success of the hill climb, began a campaign to reopen the Goodwood circuit. So, on a foggy morning in 1998, 50 years after Grandpa March opened the circuit by driving a Bristol 400 around the track, Charles March drove the same Bristol 400 around the newly renovated Goodwood racetrack, and thus began the Goodwood Revival, where cars from the 50s and 60s could duke it out live. It's attracted celebrities like Rowan Atkinson and his race-ready classic Astons, and it has seen some of the most expensive cars ever sold trade paint. Even Sterling Moss, Mr. Goodwood himself, participated in the annual revival. And there, on this legendary track, you can see classic Grand Prix cars, aging formula cars, and even pedal cars in the Setrington Cup, all out there doing what they are built for, with, a modern ambulance on standby. Each year, the Goodwood Festival, including the revival and the hill climb, prove to the world that car culture isn't dead, that gearheads persist, and the love of speed is something that can be passed down. As Charles IX Duke passed his love of petrol to our current hero, the 11th Duke, we can pass on motorsports to the people who will inherit these iconic tracks after us, and make sure that the fine tradition of smoke, sound, and motored rivalries continues.